It's the peak summertime during sports season, and as the last ball hits the target, Shoutaru realizes that he has spent 3 years being benched for his high school baseball team. On his way back, he notices a group of energetic boys who are stretching and chatting eagerly, so he follows them to a stadium only to come across Miyagi's athletics tournament. Just then, the same group of boys enter the stage as a part of the boys' rhythmic gymnastics team, which surprises him. Their performance begins, in which the 4 boys do a sequence play by coordinating together and using the stage to do all kinds of tricks. They all do coordinated plays and effortlessly run and glide across the stage together. Their performance finally ends, however Shoutaru notices that the team, which is actually Aohai's gymnastics team, has scored very low. A guy sitting beside him comments that the team has scored pretty high despite their few team members. Another dude tells him that gymnastics teams are supposed to have 6 team members and marks are deducted for each missing team member, which makes him realize that Aohai scored pretty well for having only 4 members. Later he shares the tale of the gymnastics team with his family too, and they all discuss how he needs to take entrance exams to enter high school now. His dad asks him what he wants to do in the future, which gets his empty brain thinking since he doesn't have much of a plan for his future. He also keeps recalling Aohai's team's performance. Sometime later, he gets ready for his school's entrance ceremony, and not so surprisingly, he joins Aohai. In the gymnastics club, the captain Shichigahama pumps the other members to recruit 2 additional members to complete their team. He reminds them that the other clubs will snatch up the best athletes, so they need to hurry too. Their manager Asao hands them all flyers, and they all begin engaging with the newcomers to try to recruit them. Shoutaru becomes even more awkward when he watches all this, and just then, the same guy who was watching the tournament with him walks up to the team and announces that he wants to join the team. Shoutaru then stalks the team to their club room, where he learns that the newcomer is actually Misato Ryoya, who came second in the individual gymnastics matches in middle school. The team discovers him eavesdropping on them like a creep, and Misato shares with them that Shoutaru actually watched their match with him. Shichigahama then invites him to join their first session just to get a feel of the things, so he and Misato both join the team to practice for a bit. They begin training with running first, followed by some stretching to loosen them up. A senior team member, Tsukadate, helps Shoutaru stretch and even comments that his body is very flexible, which makes it perfect for gymnastics. Misato also does a series of leaps and jumps, and their coach Shusaku tells him to do another series to test him out. He follows the instructions perfectly. Meanwhile, Shoutaru tells Shichigahama that he is still unsure about joining the team. He also tells him that he really enjoyed their performance in the tournament, so Shichigahama tells him to try doing a backflip. The team helps him try a few backflips, and Misato even demonstrates a spectacular backflip of his own. This motivates Shoutaru a lot, so he keeps trying to do backflips with the team's help. Finally, he does one backflip on his own, which makes him realize that he really enjoys the freedom that comes with gymnastics, and so he announces that he wants to join the club. The gang celebrates his decision to join the club, and he even thanks Misato for inspiring him to do the backflip. He then submits his application, and coach Shusaku tells the newcomers that the newcomers are advised to live in the boys' dormitory to take that team spirit to another level. Misato excuses himself since he has to be at home in the evenings, while Shoutaru becomes really excited to hear about the dorm. His parents don't have a problem with this, and the next time he brings his luggage to the club to start staying at the dorm. On Shichigahama's instruction, they jog through the town and arrive at Seikyu University's gymnasium, which the club rents out for an hour twice every week. The gymnasium has a gymnastics mat which helps in the practice, and the whole team starts stretching to get ready to practice. Tsukadate reminds Shoutaru that freehand exercises which are done without any apparatus are more important than flashy tumbling moves, and Asao fills him in about each team member's specialty. Misato then does a flashy move which amazes everyone as always. Later, Misato heads home while everyone else escorts Shoutaru to the men's dorm. Shoutaru expects to live in the fancy dorm where all the school's famous athletes live. Instead, his team members lead him to a rundown building which used to be a former storage facility, and which looks like a horror movie set. Shoutaru gets the room with his teammate Watari, and afterwards they all prepare their dinner together. At dinner they all discuss their families and how they can improve their synchronization during their performance. The next day, Asao informs coach Shusaku that Shoutaru is learning quickly but he is not ready yet. Shusaku then announces to the team that the plan is to do their routine with 6 members now instead of 4, which makes Shoutaru realize that he may get to perform with the others too. Shusaku then asks him to cross the mat with backflips only, and he manages to do a few backflips before collapsing down, so Shusaku tells him that they will test him after a week, and if he doesn't pass, the team will perform their routine without him. He explains that the May Prefectural tournament is also coming, so they can't put him in danger even if doesn't learn properly. Shoutaru agrees to take the test and Masato gets put in charge of his training. The next few days Masato advises him on his backflips and points out his weaknesses. He doesn't stay late to help in practice even when Shoutaru asks him to, but the next morning, he arrives at the dorm very early to help him practice. A day before the test, Shoutaru heads early to the gym where he comes across Masato doing backflips. Just like the first day, he becomes very inspired to do gymnastics like Masato and rushes inside to practice. As usual, Masato leaves in the evening even though Shoutaru is still struggling to do backflips, and the rest of the team arrange mats on some cardboards outside the gym to help Shoutaru practice. The others tell him to not overwork himself and he tells them that he wants to perform with them. Shichigahama shares how Shusaku inspired him to join gymnastics in middle school, and how the others also joined with him to form their gymnastics club. Just then, Masato also joins them from his den of darkness and tells Shoutaru to nail his performance. Shoutaru recalls the spirit of all of his team members, especially Masato's backflips, and he finally takes the plunge to backflip. The next morning he does the same backflips in front of Shusaku and passes the test. His team members celebrate his success and Masato tells him that his moves weren't that bad. He then thanks Masato and announces that he will catch up to him soon. Asao shows everyone a visual of the choreography they'll be performing based on 6 members, and Shoutaru questions if they can perform any way they want. Masato begins explaining the rules of the competition, which dictates what things a performance should have, otherwise points will be deducted. They're all very hyped up to perform properly in the upcoming inter-high competition, so they begin practicing their newly created 6-member performance. The seniors have a hard time adapting to the new performance as they are accustomed to the 4-member one, and Shoutaru has a hard time keeping up too. They continue practicing, and later, Shusaku informs them that they'll be holding a training camp with Shiro High School, who are a regular team in inter-high, which will help everyone improve. Later, Shoutaru practices handstands outside the dorm and the seniors leave to get some air. He lays down to catch his breath when the white-haired dude named Mashiro, who was with Masato before, appears above him. He roasts Shoutaru's handstand before continuing to play tag with the kids as they try to catch him, but he evades everyone using gymnastics, leaving Shoutaru in awe. The kids give up, so Mashiro suggests that he and Shoutaru will be at this time with their legs tied together. They're out of sync at first but soon get a hang of it and start jumping around. Meanwhile, Masato hangs around with a girl when he sees the seniors roaming around. He gets embarrassed, so he turns away before they can see and asks the girl to leave without him. The girl leaves and he tries to escape by entering a store, but seniors see him. They question what he's trying to buy in that store and they tease him for being a pervert. Shichigahama tells him that they came out to shop for the training camp, but everyone is buying totally unrelated, useless things. They encounter the captain of the Shiro High team, Takase, and another member, Matsu. The two captains start off strong, with Takase sarcastically talking about how they finally got 6 members, and Shichigahama hits back by thanking him for coming down from the mountains. They continue trash talking each other until Tsukadate and Matsu stop them. Takase and Matsu talk to Masato about how they're surprised he really joined Ao High after rejecting their offer. The seniors are surprised that Masato liked them so much, and Takase says that Masato will soon regret his choice. Mashiro and Shoutaru finish playing with the kids, and Shoutaru asks Mashiro if he does rhythmic gymnastics. Mashiro replies with a yes and roasts Shoutaru's handstands again. Shoutaru tells him how he just started out and asks him for advice, but he replies that everything around him just turns white when he does it. This makes Shoutaru go into a deep trance as he tries to replicate it, and he successfully does it, so Mashiro compliments him. He starts freaking out about being late somewhere and shows Shoutaru a picture of where he needs to go, which turns out to be the school gate. Shoutaru guides him and they reach the gate where the Shiro High and Ao High teams are present already, and they learn that they belong to the rival teams. Mashiro gives Masato a flying hug and the two coaches also arrive. Asao reveals that Mashiro is the winner of the national tournament in which Masato came second, which shocks everyone. The Shiro High team gives a formal introduction and decides to give a performance to showcase their skills. They begin their enigmatic performance with everyone fully in sync and not even a single mistake. Ao High team is left starstruck by the exceptional performance, and Shoutaru realizes the actual level of Shiro High, a regular at Inter High. At the dorm, everyone prepares dinner as they discuss how they can never reach the level of Shiro High's team, and even Shichigahama doesn't make quirky comments like he always does. Just then, Mashiro barges in and his team members follow him. Their captain Takase gifts them apples, and Mashiro even tries out Shichigahama's treats much to his delight. Soon they all start to mingle with each other. The next morning, Aohai's team all wakes up to realize that that other team woke up before them and that they have taken over the dorm completely. One of their members cleans all the halls while another one cooks breakfast, which angers Watari, and another one puts flowers in the hall. Later, Coach Mabuchi declares that the training camp's purpose is to evaluate the synchronization of each team as well as evaluation of movements of each team member. Their practice begins, in which Mabuchi once again reminds them not to slack off. As they are all stretching, Shoutaru notices Mashiro's effortlessly stable pose while he himself struggles to maintain his posture. Mabuchi also reminds Shusaku that he can also give the teams some instructions, and he replies that he isn't good at being vocal. They both start to recall their days as team members. Meanwhile, the team tells Shoutaru that Mabuchi and Shusaku actually laid down the foundation of Hakume's men's gymnastics team in the past, and that they were pretty legendary. They even look at their old pictures, in which Shusaku looks pretty aggressive and energetic. The time arrives for both of the teams to perform, and Mabuchi tells all of them to give advice to each other freely. Shirohai begins their performance first, and soon both of the teams finish performing. Afterwards, Aohai's team cleans the gymnasium, and they all discuss how they can never reach the other team's level. At a cafe, Shirohai's team also discusses the purpose of their visit to Miyagi, since they don't have much to learn here. Takase tells the team that he first saw the other team performing 2 years ago, and that their performance was incredible back then. He reminds the team that Aohai will crawl their way up in no time. The Aohai team discusses why they cannot synchronize properly, and Shichigahama even apologizes to Shusaku for putting on a pathetic display. He gives them some lame advice to look at the sky once in a while, and tells them to rest for the next day. On the way back, Mashiro tells Shoutaru not to compare himself to Mashiro, and he replies that he just doesn't want to drag the team down. The others discuss with him that they will try to match their movements with him, and in all this discussion, Shichigahama realizes that their problem is that they are too focused on matching their movements with each other, which is affecting their performance. He tells the team about this problem and reminds them their goal is to get into Inter High. He then yells that all of them should set their eyes on higher goals and that they should try to surpass each other without focusing on each other's movements too much. The Shirohai team joins them, and Shichigahama tells them they will surpass their team in no time. Back in the dorm, a mini celebration is held to welcome the new members and Shirohai team members. Some of them fangirl over Japanese idols while some discuss their plans. The whole dorm buzzes with excitement, and Shichigahama and Takase even compete with each other by doing backflips. They get too excited and take their antics outside, while the rest of the boys point out each other's specialty and weak points. Shoutaru asks Masato his reason for joining Aohai, and he tells him that he can only do the type of gymnastics he wants to do at this school. Mashiro hears this as well, and this inspires Shoutaru to do gymnastics the way he likes to do. The next morning, they all practice once again, and Mabuchi points out to Shusaku that Aohai's team looks even sharper than before. Later, Shoutaru hides under the desk from Shichigahama, who is about to find him. 30 minutes prior to this, Mabuchi announces the end of the training camp, and Mashiro suggests that they should play a game of hide and seek to end it properly, where 2 seekers, one from each team, will compete to see who can find more people. Mabuchi is fired up after hearing that it's a competition, so they do rock, paper, scissors to choose the seekers. Back to the horror scene. Shichigahama fails to see Shoutaru in front of him, and he and Takase try to find the rest of the people together. He comes out from under the desk and sees that Masato is also hiding in the same place. Another member of Shirohai roams around freely and sees some ruined flowers, so he decides to fix them. Shoutaru realizes that it's his chance to get closer to Masato, so he starts asking questions. But Masato doesn't answer when he asks about how Masato came into rhythmic gymnastics. Mashiro appears out of nowhere and starts revealing how he transferred to Misato's middle school, where he was captivated by Misato's performance. On the other side, Tsukadate and Matsu are hiding together, and they discuss how both the captains are very simple-minded, as they started off on the wrong foot 2 years ago just because of apples and snacks. They both continue complimenting their own captains like it's a competition. Simultaneously, the other member finally fixes the flowers, and just then he gets flashed by a light. Shusaku, Mabuchi, and Asao hide together, where Shusaku says that he is happy that all the kids are getting along, and Mabuchi reminds him how he used to say that making friends was for the losers. Mabuchi begins talking about the past, about how Shusaku must have been on the top if he hadn't participated in that competition, but Shusaku stops him from talking anymore about the past. Shichigahama and Takase continue their search with no results. Meanwhile, two members start bickering over their different views on idols, while two bicker over their views on Yakuza movies. Sukadate and Matsu are still competing over whose captain is better, and they get flashed by a light too. The argument over idols gets heated when a man enters the room while on the other side. The Yakuza lovers are almost caught by Shichigahama because they're too loud. Shoutaru talks about how everyone has such a distinct personality, and wonders if he needs to have a distinct personality too to catch up to them. Mashiro tries asking questions to find something special in Shoutaru, and they realize they used to do the same sports since the start, but Mashiro quit them because they were too easy. He says that gymnastics is fun because Misato does it too, and he had a hard time catching up to him, but that's because Misato isn't trying with his heart yet. He says that he likes Misato a lot, that's why he doesn't want to lose to him. Shoutaru gets fired up after hearing Misato talk and loudly declares that he will also fly one day alongside them. They tell him to calm down when the dark figure enters their room too, and they start shouting. The two captains hear their screams and rush to them, but they hear footsteps and let out screams. They are brought to the guards' room where the rest of the people are already present, and they reveal that they were brought here by the other guards. The guard present reveals that he is the only guard here, which leaves everyone in shock. Mabachi ends up sleeping while hiding, so Asao takes pictures of them, marking the end of the training camp. The next day, the team uniforms arrive, which Asao designed, and everyone likes them a lot. The seniors begin changing on the spot out of excitement without realizing that Asao is present, so she starts taking their pictures to embarrass them. With the prefectural competition a few days away, all the team members try to make up for what they're lacking, and Shoutaru still has a hard time keeping a stable handstand during performance, even though he can do it separately. The days go by as they continue practicing, and Shoutaru gets tense with the competition the next day. After practice, Watari invites Misato to join them for dinner this time, and Misato accepts the invitation for the first time. While eating, Misato tells Shoutaru to relax as he just started out and no one expects him to perform perfectly. The seniors talk about how they have full members for the first time and are glad that they won't be getting a 3-point deduction for the first time in 3 years, so Shoutaru shouldn't pressurize himself. Shichigahama thanks Shusaku for keeping his promise of making a place for them in this school, and he promises Shusaku that they'll bring him to the Inter High. Watari gets very excited and emotional after hearing it and declares that they'll reach the Inter High, which makes Shichigahama cry too. At night, all the members have a hard time sleeping due to excitement, and the next morning, they join up with Shusaku before heading out for the tournament. Shoutaru's family also comes to see his performance, and the opening ceremony starts. Aohai is selected to perform last, so the members warm up separately in their own ways while the other teams are performing. Takase and Matsu also arrive, and Takase tells Shichigahama that he only came to see their performance. Shichigahama replies that they will qualify properly this time with 6 members, and Takase tells him not to be too full of himself. Mashiro finds Misato and tells him that he only came to see him as no one else is worth watching. He is about to walk away all cool, but Misato points him in the right direction. Shoutaru starts feeling the pressure while thinking about how he might hold everyone back, and with their turn next up, they get dressed to perform. The second last school finishes its performance, so they start walking to the stage next, and Shusaku tells Shoutaru to believe himself as his gift is being earnest. This makes Shoutaru relax, and they all get up on stage and begin their performance. They perform every movement right, fully in sync with one another, not missing a single beat, and they do the most critical movement involving the handstand. Finally, for the first time, Shoutaru does not mess up and they continue to perform flawlessly, and Onagawa loses balance slightly, but they don't stop. They properly end their performance with the crowd cheering them, and they manage to place second, successfully qualifying for the regionals. Matsu and Takase discuss how they would have gotten first place if Onagawa hadn't messed up, and Mashiro starts focusing on Shoutaru after seeing his performance. The Aohai members roast Onagawa for messing up, but they're all happy that they qualified. Misato approaches a girl named Sakiko and tells her that he wants to talk with her. At the dorm, Shoutaru still cannot believe they have qualified for the regionals, while Onagawa seems deep in thought. The team thinks he may be brooding over his mistake, but he only whines that they aren't getting much attention from the ladies as he expected they would. Shusaku then brings Misato to the dorm and announces that he will be living with them from now on. Much to everyone's surprise, Misato makes them a splendid breakfast and even cleans the kitchen flawlessly. Before they can practice further for Inter High, Sukadate reminds them that their midterms are approaching in 2 weeks, and that most of them with their gorilla brains need heavy practice for that too. He then tells Misato to help Shoutaru in his English subject and takes on the duty to tutor Onagawa and Shichigahama himself. Since he and Asao are good at studying, he also assigns Asao to tutor Watari. The preparation for midterms begins, in which Tsukadate loses his brain cells in helping Onagawa and Shichigahama while Asao tries to tame Watari. Later, everyone whines about being hungry due to studying too much, and Misato feeds them rice balls to replenish themselves. Shichigahama shares that he made a promise to Shusaku in the beginning that they would pass all their exams in exchange for using the university gym every week. He also reveals that if Shusaku hadn't stopped performing, he would have altered the history of men's rhythmic gymnastics. Asao brings dinner to Shusaku, and when she notices that he was analyzing the team by watching their performance, she comments that lately he seems to resemble his old self. In the past, Mabuchi tells his team that they are going to change the practice regime, to which they start complaining, so Shusaku tells them that they are useless deadbeats who cannot perform seriously. Shichigahama shares that Shusaku got injured a day before one of his tournaments, but he still performed in the tournament, due to which he got a serious leg injury. In the past, Shusaku tells Mabuchi after getting injured that he only lives in the present and that he is going to soar again. He even goes overseas for treatment, where the foreign doctor tells him that he can never compete again. At the time of his discharge, a nurse motivates him that due to all his hard efforts, he is able to walk on his 2 feet, so he should look forward to his future. He then ends up marrying this nurse and gets to meet Asao, who is actually the nurse's relative. Soon he begins applying to schools to become a gymnastics coach, but nobody gives him a job. His older teammates don't want to work with him due to his past attitude, but he still ends up getting a job in Aohai despite their lack of a team. One day when he is jogging, he arrives at a park and tries to do a backflip. Even though he fails, Shichigahama, who is also at the park, sees his attempt and becomes inspired to try gymnastics because of him. Onagawa and Tsukadate join the team because of him too, and soon they all tell Shusaku that they want to enroll in Aohai to form a team under him. He becomes motivated to form a club in Aohai because of them and pitches this idea to the management, but they don't take it seriously. He then does a backflip to show the head manager the beauty of the gymnastics and somehow convinces him to approve the men's gymnastics club at Aohai. With Mabuchi's help, he then makes a deal with Seikyu University to let them use their gym and finally makes Shichigahama the captain. Just then, Shichigahama himself announces that they will pass all their tests, or else they won't use the gym. In the present, the team roasts Shichigahama for making such a promise and for pushing them into such a mess. Time slowly passes and everyone then manages to pass their midterms. Misato wakes up Shoutaru early in the morning, since they are roommates now, and the whole team goes for an early jog outside. Shusaku announces that as the regional tournament is coming in 3 weeks, he will improve their choreography to make it a bit harder so that they can win the tournament. In the meanwhile, they do their usual practice, and on the way back, Onagawa gets hit by a moped. He tells the team that it may take him 2 to 3 weeks to recover, so Shusaku advises him to rest fully to recover from his injury. He even hints that Onagawa should take the time to recover from any other problem that he has too. Watari gives him a piggyback ride back to the dorm, and everyone keeps fussing over him. Shoutaru even offers to feed him food, and he yells at everyone to stop acting like his mother. Afterwards, Shoutaru suggests that he and Misato can take care of Onagawa while he is injured, but when they go to his room to share this news, they don't find him there. Instead, they find him in the bathroom dancing on his 2 feet to a song which shocks them. Onagawa also spots them, and after dragging them inside, he tells them he wanted some time to think for himself without having to practice. He requests them not to tell the others, and Misato agrees on the condition that he would have to put up the fake act every second of the day. Misato then tells the others that he's moving into Onagawa's room, and as a result, Watari moves in with Shoutaru. As Onagawa fangirls over an idol in his room, Misato writes down all the issues that they faced in the practice. Seeing this, Onagawa comments that their rooming together may not work out, so he requests for Shoutaru to move in instead, but Misato declines this request and reminds him to keep putting up the fake act. Afterwards, Misato keeps reminding Onagawa to put up his feet when he's brushing his feet, or when he's alone, or even at school, when no one is looking. At practice, Shusaku reminds Onagawa that he's the most flexible team member and that his tumbling is beautiful, which makes him sus that their coach may be onto him. Later, Shoutaru asks Misato why he agreed to Onagawa's request, and he replies that he wants to see what happens since nothing can be done now. Onagawa then overhears Tsukadate tell Shichigahama that they may not be able to perform with Onagawa even after 2 weeks, but Shichigahama tells him that Onagawa is a part of their team and they will all go to Inter-High together. At night, Misato asks Onagawa whether he's having second thoughts because of him and whether he doesn't like having him as his roommate. This makes Onagawa laugh, and he explains that he has always been going with Tsukade and Shichigahama's plans since a long time ago, but when they decided to form the club, he made the decision to become the team's ace. He keeps ranting that after Misato joined, he couldn't outshine him, but Misato argues that he never wanted to become the ace. Instead, his aim is always to soar high like Shusaku. They both vent to each other for an eternity, and at the end Onagawa thinks about his favorite idol, who is always optimistic and wants to do better. The next day Onagawa joins Misato and Shoutaru for a morning jogging session, and later even joins everyone for practice. He tells Misato that he will outshine him soon and be the team's ace in Inter High. Shusaku then shares the new choreography with the team, which excites everyone, and even asks Misato and Shoutaru whether they can train harder to upgrade their moves. Shoutaru agrees, but Misato keeps quiet after watching the new choreography. The team analyzes the different moves that they will have to learn and comments that Misato's moves would have to be pretty coordinated. Misato recalls how in the past he had to do a similar coordinated move with his teammate, but due to his mistake, he ended up injuring the teammate instead. Currently, the team begins practicing their new choreography, in which Misato has to lift Shoutaru in the air, but at the last moment, Misato backs down. They keep trying again and again, but Misato keeps messing up his moves. At the end, Shusaku tells him to try the next day and instructs him to rest for now. At the dorm, the team discusses why Misato is so afraid of the new moves, while Misato tries to analyze the new move all by himself. The next day Misato again keeps messing up the move, and Watari accuses him for not trusting them as his foundation since they are supposed to lift him. He apologizes to the team, and Shusaku postpones their practice after the classes. Afterwards, he bails on the practice and even heads home rather than going to the dorm. He skips school the next day, so Shusaku takes Shoutaru with him and visits his home. Misato's aunt Heroes invites them inside, and Shoutaru notices that she's pretty clueless around the house. He realizes that Misato must be staying at the house to take care of everything in the beginning. Heroes reveals that in the second year of junior high, Misato had an accident in which he couldn't properly coordinate with his teammate, which injured him. She also reveals that his parents are dead and that he always likes to be a very independent person whom people can rely on. After exposing his life story, she comments that Shusaku looks familiar and takes out a picture book to show Shusaku's picture when he was in university. She shares that Misato came across Shusaku videos when he was depressed as a child, and that he got inspired to do gymnastics after watching his videos. Later, when they are leaving, Misato also arrives at his home, and Shusaku leaves Shoutaru to talk to him alone. Before he can say anything, Misato comments that he is planning to trust everyone, but Shoutaru argues that he is just taking the burden on himself. He tells him to be needy to rely on others, and then drags him to the dorm, where he apologizes to everybody for being so pathetic. Watari also apologizes to him, and he then requests everyone to lend him a hand in practice so that he can perfect his move. The others agree and even remind him that he cannot soar high without their help. Soon they all start to fool around, which is their usual at this point. Later, Misato confesses to Shoutaru that he plans to get a job after high school since he doesn't want to be a drag on his aunt, and because of this he only has 3 years to pursue gymnastics. Shoutaru assures him that he also has 3 years and that they will all reach the Inter High in no time. Next day at practice, Shusaku shares with the seniors that he took Shoutaru with him to Misato's house because when they will leave after finishing high school, those two will make up the gymnastics team. During practice, Misato struggles to perform and even swears, but he continues his practice. Shusaku shares his fortune of wisdom that he used to perform all by himself, but Misato can learn to rely on his teammates since they will all soar together. Finally, Misato manages to perform his move with Shoutaru, and he tells Shusaku that despite his failures, he still loves his backflips. Misato gives out pointers to Watari and Asao, and Shusaku discuss how they're all in their prime condition with only 2 days left. Shusaku tells everyone to rest tomorrow so they can keep their energy for the competition, and Asao states the schedule for the day of the competition. She also shows everyone videos of the schools that will be participating in the regionals and points out the top schools that they'll have to compete against in the Inter High. Shichigahama says that they will need to make it through the regionals first if they want to compete against the top schools. They discuss how they'll relax tomorrow and everyone has their own plans, but the next day, they're all still in the dorm. Misato and Shoutaru notice how they're all acting differently, and Onagawa notices how Shichigahama is tapping his feet based on their rhythm for the performance. They realize that they're all just craving to practice and can't act normally because of it. Misato suggests they should try things to distract themselves, but the seniors explain how they've already tried everything. Shoutaru suggests reading the dictionaries to calm themselves, but they keep on reading about gymnastics terms in the dictionaries, so they give up on reading the dictionaries too. Misato suggests that they start cleaning up to distract themselves, and it works out. Shoutaru opens a room to clean it, but boxes start falling towards him, so he blocks them with his hands and falls on his hand too. The rest of the members also arrive and explain that they store their stuff in their room. Shoutaru takes out a uniform from one of the boxes, while on the other side, Shusaku is also nervous. In the dorm, the seniors explain how it's their old uniform that Shusaku's wife designed, who they've never met. In another box, Shoutaru finds the uniform the seniors were wearing when he first saw them perform. The seniors explain how they had to clean up the dorm the first time they came and request Watari, Shoutaru, and Misato to keep the place safe after they leave. Watari starts talking about how he didn't have anything before he started doing rhythmic gymnastics, so he won't let their legacy die. During dinner, Shoutaru accidentally drops the soy sauce bottle, and after they take a bath, they all gather in the courtyard to watch the sky. Shichigahama speaks a few words of encouragement about how they will make it through the regionals and reach the inter-high. Before sleeping, Shoutaru raises his hand and clenches it again and again, which prompts Misato to ask him if something's wrong. Shoutaru explains how he's very nervous for tomorrow, but would even be more nervous if he was the only member from the first-year class. He thanks Misato because he was only able to come this far while trying to catch up to him. They sleep after this, and Shoutaru dreams about their performance, in which he falls down after his hand gets heavy. A storm comes out of his hand which prevents him from getting up while the rest of the members perform, and the stone suddenly enlarges to cover the whole body. Misato notices that Shoutaru is in pain and wakes him up, but Shoutaru's hand starts hurting as soon as he wakes up. He puts ice on his hand, which finally lessens the pain, and suggests that they should keep it hidden from everyone, but Misato is against it. He explains that Shusaku will be present and he will catch it immediately, so there is no point in trying to hide it. Shichigahama tells him to go see a doctor as they have time till the opening ceremony starts, but Shoutaru says that he can perform as it's just a sprain, but Shichigahama replies that he won't let him perform unless he goes to a doctor. Misato decides to go with Shoutaru while the rest of the team goes to the venue. They meet the Shiro High team, and Mashiro notices that Shoutaru and Misato are missing, so he asks about it, but Onagawa lies that they overslept. However, Matsu finds it suspicious. Shoutaru's family also comes to watch the competition, and they meet heroes. The opening ceremony ends and the schools start performing while the Ao High team warms up. Shiro High passes by and Take's grabs Shichigahama's collar for looking so defeated even before performing, just because their two members have yet to arrive. Take's talks about how Shichigahama was always full of energy and determination even when they only had 3 members, but they look pathetic now. Shichigahama pushes him away after saying that they're still the same, and Shiro High team leaves, but this helps the Ao High gain some motivation again. Shiro High starts their performance, beautifully performing every movement with not a single flaw. The audience is left captivated as no one can deny how well they're performing, and Shoutaru and Misato also arrive outside the venue. The performance finally comes to an end and they manage to get 18 points along with cheers from all the spectators. Shoutaru also rejoins the team and explains that the doctor said that he needs a 2-week rest but refuses to sit out because of the 1.5 points deduction. The others object that he might mess up, which will result in a greater deduction, and Watari says that he still has next year so he should sit out. Shoutaru objects that this is the only year he can't sit out, otherwise he won't be able to perform with the seniors. He requests them to let him compete, and Misato also supports him. Shichigahama agrees with Shoutaru and Tsukadate tries to change his mind, but Shichigahama asks him if he could sit out if he was in Shoutaru's position. They all eventually switch to Shoutaru's side and request Shusaku to let Shoutaru compete. Shusaku recalls how he faced the same situation and warns Shoutaru that he might not be able to ever perform again if his injury worsens, but Shoutaru says that he is fine with it. Shusaku agrees to their request and tells Shoutaru to go back to the hospital as soon as the performance ends. The members leave quickly to warm up and they go to the side of the stage after a while. They huddle up for a last motivational speech and head out to the stage one by one. They step onto the stage and begin their performance and do not make a mistake at the start, and they all do every move perfectly with very different visuals this time. The lights help make their performance even better, and Shoutaru manages to hold on without messing up, and Mashiro is so captivated by the performance that he starts crying. The performance ends as they're all breathing very heavily, and they manage to get a score of 17.8, which places them in second place, eligible for the inter-high if none of the 5 remaining teams can get a higher score. Shoutaru comes down from the stage in pain, and Asao tells them that the taxi is waiting outside so they should quickly head to the hospital. Misato volunteers to go with him and Shusaku apologizes to Shoutaru's family. Mabuchi relays the news to the Shiro High team about Shoutaru being in the hospital due to performing while being injured. Shoutaru's father tells Shusaku that it's alright because it was Shoutaru's decision as he finally found what he wanted to do. Shusaku and Mabuchi have a talk and Shusaku explains how they don't know yet if Shoutaru will be able to perform again or not. Mabuchi explains that Shusaku only did what was best for Shoutaru, so he shouldn't blame himself as it was Shoutaru's own choice. Shoutaru finally comes out of the doctor's office and tells Misato what the doctor said. Misato texts someone about how the doctor said that Shoutaru will be fine. Shoutaru asks him if it's the team members, but Misato gets flustered and says that it's not. He stays tense the whole way back and stops Shoutaru from contacting the team. They join up with the team outside the venue and Shoutaru questions if they qualified, but they all make a sad face which almost makes him cry, but it turns out to be a prank. They announce that no one got a higher score afterwards and they have successfully advanced to the Inter-High along with Shiro High. Shoutaru's tears start dropping on the ground and he explains that he was very scared they won't be able to go to the Inter-High because of him and he would have never been able to face them properly. He finally stops his sobbing session and Shusaku hurriedly asks about the injury. Shoutaru explains that he will be fine, so Shusaku lets out a breath of relief and says that he will be giving everyone a treat for qualifying. They all eat snacks together and Asao tells Shoutaru to contact Mashiro because he was really worried about him. They explain how they met the Shiro High team in the venue and Mashiro told them that Shoutaru performed great and that he will beat Shoutaru in the Inter-High. On the way back, Shoutaru tells everyone about how the doctor advised a strict full-month rest for the hand, which means he won't be able to practice until the Inter-High. All the seniors are disappointed to hear it, but Shusaku reminds them that they're lucky he can still perform as he could have gotten a permanent injury. The members discuss how the school would have also created a big issue if a student had gotten a permanent injury, and Tsukade questions if Shusaku was planning to take the blame. Shusaku explains how he could have only taken the punishment for it. Shoutaru declares how he will get better as soon as possible and won't risk another injury. Shusaku explains how he was also injured permanently in the past and he gives them a spiritual lesson about decisions and their consequences. He tells them how he will bring them to the right path if they ever go astray, and they all thank him for being a great teacher. Shusaku explains how he also felt like he was flying when he saw their performance and thanks everyone. Shichigahama reminds them not to be too relaxed as they have much to improve, and will one day perform perfectly so they can get a perfect score. Asao shows them that she also managed to obtain a lot of data using which they can improve, and they're all hyped up. After coming back to the dorm, Shoutaru talks about how he feels a sense of belonging at the dorm, and the next day, they all start practicing for the Inter-High. They all talk about how they will fly together again, and Shoutaru recalls where he came from and now he can equally fly together with everyone. That's it for today, my fellow men of culture. Like and subscribe the channel for more plot-filled recaps.